Each and every one of you that have returned back to serve the Lord, along with those who were not here earlier. And we're so grateful to the Lord for bringing them here safe as well. Our particular topic this evening, I believe, will be beneficial. It was to me, and I'll be blessed to get an additional dosage of the thought. If you do not give the whole counsel of God, how will you say, I'm sorry? If you do not give the whole counsel of God, have we ever thought about how will you say, I'm sorry? What would you tell a soul that dies lost? If you were able to say something to the soul that died lost because you did not want to give the whole counsel of God, what would you say? I'm sorry? Is there some special way to say I'm sorry? It won't matter to them. They're lost. They're eternally lost. And you would be saved in your mind because you knew the counsel. But because of that, God is not stupid. So he says, if you don't say what I said, and they do die lost, I'm going to take your life from you. See, because can you imagine, what would you say to that soul? Hey man, you know, I had so much going on with my family, my life. I was trying to juggle a lot of things. I was just, there was so much going on, and I had illness or whatever, and I just, I didn't think it was the best time to do it. I'm sorry you're going to hell. Was that what you would say? Is that what I would say? Well, there's nothing you could say that would make sense. Just as Abraham tried to explain to Abimelech why he told him Sarah was his sister. He said, why don't you just tell me she's your wife, man? Who does that? Why would a man do that to another man? Abraham explained, well, she is my sister in that we have one parent we share. The other parent is different. And she is my wife also. He said, take your stuff and go. The explanation was foolishness. See, when you cause a person damage, saints, even while they're still on the earth, guess what? They don't accept our lame excuse as to why we did that. Did we not know that? Did we not see that in the Abimelech? What would you say as you looked them in the eye and they spent 20 years of drudgery, suffering on the earth behind some nonsense doctrine you gave them or I gave them? What will you say? I'm sorry? How will you say it? There is no explanation. So, what is the advice of the Bible? It is better to tell them the whole counsel and have them hate your guts and never speak to you again. And thereby you owe them no explanation because you told them the truth. You know no statement that you need to say to God, then my Father, and you're received in. See, if you play with the counsel, brother, you'll be trying to figure out, what will I say at the judgment? How will I tell the Lord, I'm sorry I sent so many souls to hell I lost count? See, we're not getting in like that. But there are souls on the earth. They think somehow they're going to get into heaven. But yet they shun to pass the whole counsel of God. See, brethren, in the area of marriage, parenting, being a sibling, any area of family, in the area of job selection, in the area of choosing a wife, in the area of selecting a congregation, in the area of even learning and developing the Bible skills on teaching and preaching, in the area of counsel when mistakes are made, you must give the whole counsel. You can't have an area where the church says, well, nobody here really knows about that subject. That's ridiculous. All men and women must develop in every congregation so that we have an array of teachers in all the areas. No big eyes, no little U's. No guys with Schwarzenegger muscles and then Casper milk toasters running around out there. Everybody needs to develop and grow so each saint can pull from the knowledge of a varied area of subject where they can develop. How would you like to have a beautiful plant growing amongst a bunch of weeds? It's just a matter of time before it's gone. So someone has to know how to go and pull the weeds out the way. How you have a plant growing, we got the weeds out the way, but no one waters it. No one ever waters it. How's that going to make it? And no one ever takes any bug spray and sprays around to keep the little pests from eating up all the leaves once it's developed. And no one has a hedge about to keep the dogs from coming in there, digging all around and putting it up. You have to have everything needed to help the plant that God has planted grow. This is our life. This is what we do. What would you say? Let's not try to come up with an excuse to the people why we didn't help them. Let's help them and develop them and build them up. This is what this subject is about. I look at Brother Gibson serving. I remember I used to tell a lot of you saints understand Brother Gibson's situation the last few years. I remember when I first met Brother Gibson, his zeal, his strength. I've seen Brother Gibson talk to people at 4:30 in the morning after he's worked that day about the Bible at their job. And the idea is that Brother Gibson was searching for a congregation somehow that he could worship with in spirit and in truth. But then if he know his job was going to put such a squeeze on him, he would not be able to come every Sunday. He had no idea what's going to happen. And you look in the scripture and you hear a message and you're encouraged about visitation. But what about a person who's trapped somewhere, but if they bail, they may not eat. They don't know how to get the thing done. How do I get this done? And I'm so thankful that the leadership of this congregation, the members that follow God faithfully, did not bail on this brother. Can you imagine Brother Gibson having to go somewhere else and serve because they thought it a good thing to remember 2 or more gathered? And then when he isn't there, he would always be in worship, for the most part, as he would come to gather with the saints that have served faithfully. Can you imagine the sorrow that should be in the heart when you go, well, he's serving faithfully at ABC congregation. He's retired now. He's there all the time like he always wanted to be. And he says, boy, he's thankful to God they didn't abandon him. And that would have been us abandoning him. Can you imagine that? I don't know about you, but that would rip me to shreds. That's just a personal statement. I would have difficulties after that. But I'm thankful to God that you understand the concept of what an imprisonment is. Some people's body is their imprisonment. Sister Ruth Reed is dead. I forgot the other sister's name that we used to visit. And another brother that was at the nursing home. Their bodies became their prison. They could not gather with the saints. But I know many saints that will go to that nursing home from another congregation of the Lord, and all they did is sing songs. Isn't that amazing? They never sought out, are there saints here? They just go in the day room and sing songs. Oh, and they'd sing to the lost souls. Isn't that amazing? Amen. And God allowed us to be the church that the nursing home called just randomly. You think that's luck? No. Because other churches are already there. Isn't it amazing that that was a church of Christ there doing nothing to build the soul up? But this saint once planted there said, I need a church of Christ that I can find that will come and worship with me. Can you believe that they randomly, the lady told me over there, home picked us, but there was a church of Christ already there. Why didn't they go, hey, you guys are church? Because the Lord knew they're not going to do nothing. Because they don't believe in that. They just believe in singing. These saints gave. One day we had such a crowd and they were all saints, we could hardly get in the room. Wheelchairs were everywhere. Wheelchairs were everywhere. We were squeezing through like that. Had a house full of wheelchairs. Isn't that amazing? And I'm saying that to say, thank God for you, this congregation, who understood spiritual versus physical. Weariness versus spiritual strength to carry me through. Some of you went there sick. Some of you went there and you had ailments. You may have even been thinking about going into a nursing home. But you served, and you served well. And the idea is that is a reason for that. Because the soul must be built up, saints. edification to build up the soul is never going to be accomplished by physical work. It is always spiritual. And that's why I love this work. And there are many congregations just like you, all over the earth, all over everywhere. Just like this, larger and smaller, what have you. And that's the beauty of being in a large church. So we're going to look at this thought. What will we say? So we got to give the whole counsel. Paul is talking about the whole counsel to this gospel preacher, Timothy, because he covers a wide variety of areas in this book, 1 Timothy 4. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Now remember, so goes the conscience, so goes the soul. So remember, the conscience is that thing that sometimes gets into a little battle with the Lord over, I'm right and the Lord is wrong. Then it bows back down. But if the conscience is trained by the Lord and somehow it's seared, that's it for that soul. Because it's going to fight God tooth and toenail. Because it doesn't have a spiritual sensitivity anymore. It's callous. I don't know if you've had a callus before, but I'm going to tell you, boy, callus is something else. You can take a pin and stick it and you won't even feel it. And you say, boy, that's my skin. And you go, my God, I can't even feel that anymore. And then sometimes it'll peel off, then it gets tender again now. But the conscience is fried. It's dead. It can't feel you poking and it doesn't feel. And look at some of the subjects that are called doctrines of devils. Forbidding to marry. This has long been earmarked a Catholic statement, but remember, saints are not in the Catholic Church. This is to the Church of Christ. And I remember I used to say that, and I had to catch myself and began to I said, hey, wait a minute, I'm showing that in the wrong light. Forbidding to marry is us. Now, we don't have priests, but we'll jump up in a minute and tell somebody, you can't marry again. See, we'll say that in a minute. Now, we understand that is the initial statement to those having difficulties after divorce. But we have to understand if there is no ability to reconcile now, this person must be taken to the advice of the Scripture. And where is that? A clear-cut area, 1 Corinthians 7. You know, one of the things that I don't understand about some of the saints in the church is how we'll take certain parts of this Scripture text and others we'll leave out. 1 Corinthians 7, I'll show you my point. 1 Corinthians 7, Paul gives express information about people who have been divorced. You know, one of the things Jesus hated about the Pharisees is they were callous toward the sheep. They would overburden the sheep. Jesus is a person that will snatch our life and not think twice. And he won't cry over it. Jesus is also a person that is the most patient individual that exists. He's like his Father God. Jesus is very sensitive toward crushed feelings, hurt people. Jesus understands the pain of divorce. He understands also the pain of the divorcee who's been put away because their life was in shambles. And he does understand that men that were once murderers became some of his great leaders. And we have to understand is Jesus is the king of fixing junkyard cars into luxury models. And that's what you and I are, and many on the earth who go by his name and use his strength. So he says in verse 6, but I speak this by permission and not commandment, which deals with the thought of how a marriage should be, how lovemaking and embracing and those things should function. Well, he also is continuing his advice, which is permitted, in verse 7. For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, clarification, one after this manner and another after that. He says, knowing this, he says in verse 8, I say therefore, to the unmarried and widows. You know, there's only 3 categories that you can possibly be in on the earth. Either you're a widow, You're unmarried or you're married. There's no other category. But unmarried has several groups in there. You have a group who is divorced. You have a group who divorced someone. You have one who has never been married. You have a group that is a virgin who's never been married. You have a group that's not a virgin, who's never been married. Several groups, and they're all without marriage vows. If you remove anyone out of this unmarried group, you have to show us a scripture where it removes them, because it just says unmarried. It uses the word widows, but it does not use the word widower. But that's because within that group, that is a male. Men, their wives die sometimes too. People just under the impression only men die. No, women die and men die. We just had to comfort a family who a great lady, Sister Joyce Jones, passed, and her husband's still alive. He's a widower. He's not a widow. It's a woman's term. Like virgin is a woman's term. So knowledge of what this word means draws our attention to, okay, so Paul's talking about people who are not married and people who are not married because their spouse is dead. Pretty easy. Pretty easy. It is good for them to abide even as I. And what is Paul? Single. Unmarried. Stay unmarried is what he's saying. It's good. He knows he can't be wrong in that one. But if they cannot contain, here's the exception clause, let them marry. So now the other group teaches the doctrine of devil. Forbid to marry. Paul says, let them marry. Forbid to marry. That's the doctrine of the devil. Paul, the doctrine of the Lord, let them marry. It's just that simple. It's so simple, you have to go, somebody's got to teach your mind out of that to lose that, because it's too simple in reading. So someone has to teach you that's not true. And they have to lie. But we be those who abide by the word of the Lord and take it as it's written. And he says, it is better to marry than to burn. Why does he say let them marry? Because he says it's better to marry. The word burn is about passion. But it's also about dealing with loneliness. See, a lot of people say that word passion. You heard about it. No. Let me tell you something. There are people who really may not like the experience of the husband and wife, or the male and female, engaging in lovemaking. But they're lonely. They don't like to wake up alone. They don't like to go to bed alone. They don't like to watch TV alone. They don't like to eat alone. They like to have someone across from of the opposite sex, not the same, not that they're homosexual, but they just want the opposite sex across from someone they can confide in, someone they can talk to. And there are saints that will rob them of that and make up a lie.
Yes.
That's not right. That's who he's talking about, forbidding to marry. And some of those never got married again after their divorce. But each man has his proper gift, one after this matter and one after another. So no matter what I can do or what you can do, we can't judge the rest of the world based on what you can do and I can do. Because Paul knows for a fact, I've never touched a woman. And I got the strength to do so. But he made it clear he's not gay. He says it's only Barnabas and I. I mean, man, you know, we could have had wives. I don't know. It wasn't that I hate women, despise their existence. He said we chose not to. But the idea is he's got a strength for that. But he even addresses that in this chapter. Some have the strength, but they still may choose to marry. He said, you haven't sinned. Why? Because marriage is honorable and all in the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Hebrews 13:4. All these texts must be brought into light to shine light on the subject. So therefore, that is a doctrine of devils. Now, an individual will distastefully push this information away. You know, that's true. The problem is this, dear brethren. They'll take verses 10 and 11. See, you can't do that with doctrine. Because for them to show that you can even come back together again as husband and wife in the community of the saints is if you take 10 and 11. See, because the law of Moses said you can't even remarry your ex-spouse. And Jesus upholds that law in Matthew 19:9, because he's definitely talking about the law of Moses, because he said, I didn't come to change the law. Matthew 19:9, he does nothing to touch Deuteronomy 24. He doesn't scathe it at all. He says, but I say, people think because he said, but I say don't mean I'm changing. It just means, but I say, except to be fornicated. That's what the law said. If you find something unclean in her. They just took it to the max level and start kicking them aside. Oh, I got a reason to get rid of her. I've been wanting to get rid of her for the longest anyway. But the idea is Jesus never changed it there. But these are the verses that show. Now, they'll take this, but Paul still said it. He says it's from the law. How do we know he didn't make it up? See, because they want to believe this part. Verse 10 says, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband. Okay, but you know, by the time he writes this, several have already done it. It's too late now. So he has to add the next statement. But if she depart, let her remain unmarried. That's already happened too. Or be reconciled. That's already happened too. And sometimes you can't, to a husband, and let the husband put away his wife. Someone said to me one day, why is it says husband there? Saints, none of these words are husband and wife. I'm going to tell you how this reads, because this deals with words like woman and man. It's simple. To the married I command you, not with the law. Let not the woman depart from her man. But if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her man. And let not the man put away his woman. That you can read it just like that, because that's what the words are. Look them up. I implore you, I beg you. Because the context is about marriage. That's why the translator puts husband and wife, to make sure we stay. One guy said, we call his husband. I said, fella, brother. I said, of course, because it's talking about the same man she's married to. It's using that same statement. So he discredits the word that they are not really divorced. They are. Because he says, let her remain unmarried. How can you be married and unmarried? So I asked him that one, and he drew a silence on me. You cannot be both, saints. You say, Ozan, why are you saying it? Because, saints, we're here to build souls up, not tear them down. You do not know what it feels like, even if you are divorced and you don't want to marry again, to be divorced and you must marry again. It's obviously not true, because you're not married no more. So you have no idea what that pain feels like. You have no idea of the loneliness each night, each day. Everyone else is, girl, I'm finna go cook for my husband. You're like, I wish I had a man to cook for. You don't know what that feels like. You say, I've been divorced 30 years, but you don't want no more man. You're not getting married. You don't know what that person goes through. Christ does. And that's why he told the Pharisees, you won't take one little finger and take the burden off. Jesus was so concerned how they were overburdening the people, because he knew it was breaking them. They were miserable to the grave. He did not bring us here for misery. You know what the Lord brought us here for? I'll show you what he brought us to Christ for. Let's look at verse number 15. But if the unbelieving depart, let them depart. I said they don't take this part. I'll take 10 and 11. Not this part. Paul said it all. He going to be lying about everything. Oh, I don't take that part, because I don't like the way it sounds. Let them depart. Yeah, but let her remain unmarried. No, time. Wait a minute. If she's unmarried or he's unmarried and they burn, let them marry. I don't want that part. I don't want that verse. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases. See, so I can't even be judged on that. Under bondage. This person won't be sanctified. But God had called us to peace. See, this is what we're talking about. There's some people that are so callous. I said, what if your daughter came home, her face is all bashed? Now see, he gonna give this answer because his daughter hadn't come home with her face bashed in. It's an easy lie I can come up with. You know, she just have to remain unmarried. I understand that. But see, he's saying that we may have to hog tie him if his daughter comes with so much as a scratch on her face. He hadn't experienced it yet. It's so easy to say it's okay. But you remember she was a little girl, you held her on, you walking down the aisle, she hugged, she kissed you, you hugged him, take care of my baby, and she come back and one eye is lower than the other, and you talk about, she just, yeah man, we have to hog tie you. and pray vigils, all night vigils, that when we unloose you, you don't go blow his head off. Because some people just lie. Especially those gun totals. Gun totals can lie quick. Got a nice shiny gun on the bed full of bullets. One eye lower than the other. Boy, I'd like to see you just sit down and have tea and pray. Okay, I hope you can. I don't know why you got that gun then. Got to hog tie some guys. They'll be in jail for life for murder. But see, they haven't experienced it. But there are other families that have. And they know the pain of abusive, vile men, evil men, unruly men, men who take advantage, hog all the income where you can't even buy a cracker. I mean, you know, I want you to be at home, take care of the children. And then, you know, you have so much, I want to go buy some shoes. What kind of shoes? What the shoes you got? And he got all the money, all the cars in his name. You don't have nothing. Cars in his name, house in his name. Basically, he could throw you out in the yard and they'd say, who are you? Your name not on nothing. And I'm just saying, I understand sometimes these things happen. But when you have those advantages, men will act a fool with you sometimes. Very much a fool. So you shouldn't have to have a daughter beat up to understand forgiveness, mercy, and grace. Shouldn't have to go to that level. The scriptures speak for themselves. And one of the things I say, we won't save his soul. Well, let's look at the next verse. That'll answer that one. For what knowest thou, wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband? The Lord's answering the question. He said, how you know that? I'm the Savior. That's what he said. I'm the Savior. How you know you're going to save? I got to do the saving. You'll say something, but I got to do the saving. Who told you they was going to be saved? He says, or how knowest thou, man?